most of the cognitive biases, in fact, there's a growing argument that a lot of the cognitive biases, confirmation bias, blah, 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 a lot of them are actually aspects of the my side bias, egocentrism. I won't make that argument here. I think it's a good argument. But let's say, even if it's only partially true, this is an important point. And Spinoza got this, right? This orientation, self-relevance, how things are relevant to me, right? That sort of fundamental egocentrism, a fundamental way in which you're prioritizing your perception on the world, right? You can't reason your way out of that. Spinoza, the most logical of the philosophers, says, no, the only thing that will invert the arrow of relevance is love. This is Murdoch's point. Love is when you recognize something other than yourself as real.
Right. Okay, so let me ask you about that, because I've been thinking about the idea of being selfish.
Yes.
Psychopaths are selfish, but they also betray themselves.
Yes.
Because psychopaths don't learn from experience, and they doom their future selves. Yes. And so I kind of wonder if the love that lifts you out of this self-orientation, what it does in some sense is that it's the way you see the world. If you see beyond this narrow selfishness, because I don't really think there's any difference technically in me taking care of the multitude of future selves that I will become and me treating you properly.
I totally agree.
Okay,
I think
fine.
Your relationship to your future self is ultimately an agapic relationship. And I think that's the only way you can deal with a lot of the empirical research.
Okay. So you do.
Yeah, yes.
Why the empirical research?
Because
then?
I think the empirical research shows that, I mentioned it in the Cambridge talk that I sent you the link to, right? What if you do this? This is one instance among many experiments. You go into a bunch of academics at a university, the people who are supposed to be the best at taking data and processing it. You present them with all the evidence that they should start saving for their retirement right now.
Right.
And they won't do it. You come back 6 months later, you ask them at the time, is this argument a solid argument? Great evidence.
Yeah.
Come back 6 months. Have they changed? Not at all.
Yeah. The behavioral therapists know that perfectly well.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you do the following, you say, I want you to imagine your future self as a family member that you love and care about.
Right. They
will start to save, and more importantly, the vividness of that imagery predicts how well.
Well, that's so cool. Look, this program that we worked on, Future Authoring Program, it's predicated on the idea of developing a love for your future self. So it's an exercise. It's a real sense. It's like here, and it's the ethic that's underneath it, although this wasn't particularly conscious in my mind when I built it, was knock and the door will open. It's like, okay, let's play a game. You get to have what you want and need. But the rule is, first of all, you have to accept it. And second of all, you have to specify it. And so, but let's just play it as a game.
Yeah.
If you could envision a future that would justify your suffering, that's a really good way of thinking about it. Justify your suffering. What would that entail? And then I make it practical. It's like, well, what do you want for an intimate relationship? How do you want to treat your family members? What sort of job or career? Like I break it into 7 practicalities, to nail it down to the ground. And I do believe that, one of the things we found, we thought, well, what predicts whether or not this works? Because it really works. We dropped the dropout rate of young men at Mohawk College, 50%.
It should.
Well, it did.
Yes.
And it had the biggest effect on those who were doing the worst, which is not very common for psychological interventions. But the only thing we could find content-wise that predicted how well it would work was number of words written. And so my sense was, well, that just was an index, a rough index of how much thought they put into it and how vividly, and then it would be, did they treat their future self with some love, like genuinely? And then did they differentiate that so it wasn't just an abstract mountaintop conceptualization?